start recording. Yeah. Now the book of Shemot, Exodus, is actually a continuation of Sefer Bereshit, of the book of Genesis. The book of Genesis is termed and it's coined by the Chazal, by the sages of Israel, as the book of the righteous, because it talks about the ways, the deeds, and the lives of the patriarchs and the matriarchs of the children of Israel. And it talks about Abraham, it talks about Yaakov, it talks about uh, Yaakov, Isaac, Isaac, a little of Ishmael, and a little of Esau. But truly, it's termed as the book of the righteous, and it talks about creation, it talks about a Havdalah, separation within all the people and tribes of the earth. So the book of Genesis or Bereshit is also separation. God is taking out a people, He's forming a people, He's bringing them into a perfection. Now, if you want to term it as to did they really enter into their perfection, you look at it, it's not happened as yet. Almost 3,500 years, 4,000 years. So there is a hope that all of humanity one day would join into this perfection. But God is doing something, and He is changing. He's using the dimension of time to reveal new things to humanity and to bring, each subsequent generation knows a lot more than the generation that's gone by, a lot more. And we're going to see an exceedingly speedy, a very speedy, knowledge-based lifestyle going ahead. Okay, so that's the book of Genesis basically. But Genesis ends with this family of Yaakov, 70 of them, who happen to go down into Mitzrayim. And they go down because it was ordained by God for them to go down, nevertheless. And they go down, they inhabit Goshen. And you'll know the story. Now, the book of Exodus is a continuation of the book of Genesis because it starts with this word. Now, all of y'all who study the Hebrew with us will understand the power of the Vav, the consonant Vav. Because it starts with the Vav, it says, Ve'ele Shemot Bene Israel Habayim. Ve'ele, that means, and these are the names of the children of Israel who came into Mitzrayim, of Yaakov and his entire family. So where Genesis ends off, we start a Sefer Shemot, but it starts with, and these are the names. Okay. So always remember there's always a connection. Whenever verbs are there, it's connecting two things together. Okay. Now, since we've spoken about the fathers and the patriarchs of the book of the righteous, let's look at Yaakov. On a brief summary, Yaakov had a very dynamic relationship with all his children, especially with Yosef. Especially with Yosef. So if you and me have to categorize what is the relationship of Yosef and who is Yosef actually, if you look at him in a very practical, pragmatic way in today's world, who is Yosef? Yosef is this brash, outgoing, super confident, full of alacrity, full of zehirut, okay, ready to do. He's like a youth who is unhindered. And that gets him into a lot of trouble. Now, there is also a righteousness of Yosef that he's not going to take nonsense from his brothers. He'll stand up to it. They're coming from a big family. Obviously, all their brothers are going to, when you have 6 and 7 and 8 brothers and sisters and all this, you are going to get whacked around, man. That's for sure. Right? You'll know. I mean, if you'll understand what big families are. So the elders of the family will obviously have some kind of parenting attitude towards you, right? That's exactly what Reuven and Shimon done when he was sold. But the rest of them, they're either going to get irritated by, a person like Yosef, who's always in the front. He's a tail tattler. He's always going and telling dad about what we are doing, and all this nonsense is happening. So Yosef is brash, but it comes from a place also that in his brashness, in his super confidence, in himself knowing what his life is. I know what my life is. I know what I'm supposed to do. And that's a very, very important thing because most of us in our lives are not really having that conviction as to who am I? What am I supposed to do in this life? That was not with Joseph. So Joseph, from very small, he had this spiritual connect of who he was and what he was supposed to do. Maybe he never knew how to do it, but he knew. Having this ability to just know yourself is very unnerving. And it doesn't get along with most people because most people are a little more relaxed, a little more not so tight about themselves. And most people are saying, Arey, let it go, man. Who cares about tomorrow? Who cares about this? Let's do this and let's do that and let's see how life goes. But no, so when you encounter a person like Yosef, it's very difficult. That is why his brothers had a major problem with him. There was also a sense of arrogance. It's true. Because if you look at the personality of Joseph, if you try to derive the personality of Joseph from the scripture, you will see he had an air of arrogance about him. He did, right in the end. Now, we may say that, okay, he's arrogant. Okay, why didn't God do something about it? Why didn't God punish him? Why didn't. And of course, he was in jail for how many? 21 years, 17 years. He went to the grind. He learned many things. He matured. When he was a young youth with his brothers, he was just rash. He was emboldened by who he thought he was. He didn't come out very well in what he spoke, so they hated him. We've all met people like Yosef in our lives. We've all met somebody who knows everything, who has the answer for everything. Who you are trying to do something in your own way and own time, and he comes in and just okay, this is it, this is it, and you're like, what? Mind your own business, man. It's very unnerving. So yes, Yosef is brash, kind of impatient, okay, uh, no nonsense type of person. I don't think he gets along too well with people, but that kind of personality needs a grooming. So while we are so hooked on Yosef, you know, going and being sold to Mitzrayim and being sold into Egypt and becoming a slave and becoming even as a slave in the house of Potiphar, he was still in charge. So the man had an air of some kind of royalty with him. He had a stature. He was very astute. That never gave. So then from there, what happens? He gets whacked again, goes down into the dungeons, to jail, and he's there, and he's there also. He's working. He's in charge of certain things, and but then he's brought up after that, and he's given a very high post. He's given a higher post than what he was before. Please make a note of this. What was he before? He was only a son to his father. And then he was a slave. And then he was in charge of the slaves. And then he was in charge of other things. And then he went down into the pit. But then he was elevated, great extent, way above what his original place was. There's a reason why the sages and Khazal and the church fathers also have looked at Yosef as a prototype Yeshua. They have. And they've seen many, many similarities. They've seen many, many connections between Yosef and Yeshua also. Now, it can be very bold to say that, okay, Yeshua walked this earth and he went around doing miracles and chastising and rebuking Pharisees and getting up their sleeves and, doing all those things and shouting at them and taking whips and whipping those guys in the temple and doing all this stuff. Was he did he have the same kind of personality as Joseph? We don't know. I don't think so. He was a very, Yeshua was, there are no words to actually coin because we've never uh, been there with him. But his very presence, his name, his presence in our lives tells us he's beautiful. He's beautiful. There's an air of royalty. There's an air of kingship with him. There's an air of uh, beauty with him. There's kindness. His very name. If you look deep in your heart, you find a kindness. You find a love. You find an attachment. You find so many things attached to him. Right? Maybe Joseph was the same. We don't know, but he had a different aura of arrogance, and that arrogance never went very well with his brothers. So that's how we're leaving now. And now we come into Shemot because in Shemot, that full generation dies and goes. It's all over. All of them die and go. All the brothers have gone, and their children are multiplying. Okay? They're multiplying and they become a huge nation. But one thing I want to tell you all about Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim was not only a great empire. Mitzrayim was not only a place that was huge and big and the city of its day and prosperous. There was an underbelly of Mitzrayim that had to do with the dark powers of this world, of witchcraft, of sorcery, of great manipulation of the forces of nature. It all happened in Mitzrayim, in Egypt. If you're reading the scriptures, we will realize that sorcery was very, very big in Egypt. Especially, do you remember the time when Moses comes with the staff and throws on the staff and it becomes a snake? And the sorcerers and the magicians in Pharaoh's court also do the same. Say, you can create a snake out of a stick, even I can do the same. They throw the sticks, they also become snakes. So I just want to make sure you understand that Egypt, the underbelly of Egypt, was heavy darkness and sorcery. That is why the name Mitzrayim comes from the word tsar. Tsar is the word for restriction, constriction. To be constricted, to be inhibited, to have limitations, to be hedged in, to be put in a place of uncomfortableness. You're absolutely uncomfortable. That is what tsar is. Now, you can be in a place that is physically challenging for you, right? A constricted place, like locked in a room or in a high tower or in a enclosed space or whatever, down a well or something. That's a physical thing. But more importantly, Mitzrayim never tracked and trapped only your physical body. It trapped your soul. So besides the new Paro who came and he said, I don't know Yosef. Who is he? The dark side of Mitzrayim took over. It really did take over. When it took over, witchcraft and sorcery became very, very big. It is by the level of Tuma, the 50 levels of Tuma that was operating in Mitzrayim, that the Jewish souls went into slavery. The result is a physical slavery because it is a spiritual slavery first. So they were bound and they were getting bound in the spiritual constriction. All the sages of Israel, all the sages of Chazal, all of them say one thing. When you sit at Pesach, or when you're having the Pesach meal, every year you remember the Geulah from Mitzrayim, the redemption from Mitzrayim. Consider that redemption, that Geulah, that it was you. Every year we've been asked, or the children of Israel are asked to remember and to recite and to proclaim loud and to tell the story. Why? Because it needs to get into each and every one that we are reading the story of the Geulah, but in fact, treat it as if you were also in Mitzrayim. And frankly, we, on a personal level, all of us are coming out of our own Mitzrayim. We are all coming out of our own Mitzrayim. Then you'll ask me, what constricted place am I in? Yeah, we all have our own constrictions, but are we working on it? And you will not even realize the kind of constrictions you're operating in. The constrictions in relationships, constrictions in the life with finances, the constrictions in the life with not being able to get a good vocation or a good job, or finding a good wife, or trying for children and not happening, or the list goes on and on. Maybe you want to do something in life, but it's just not happening, and you've been trying and trying. Nothing ever works out. Maybe relationships. We're all confined to our own Mitzrayim. Therefore, the sages say that consider yourself that you are also in Mitzrayim. And when you get that understanding that, yes, I am also in Mitzrayim, and I have been redeemed out of Mitzrayim, then all the Chag makes very big importance to you. Till then, it's just going through the motions. Okay, it's a Chag, let's keep it. It's a feast, let's keep it. Okay, the Bible says, do this, let's do it. Or let's commemorate it. The nations celebrate Good Friday. The nations celebrate the crucifixion of Yeshua and his resurrection. And they have a right to do it because it is a wonderful thing for the nations. And by the way, they do not even understand the implications of what is so wonderful about it. But they do it. They do it. In all its forms and ways, we've been through year after year, year after year. When we come to Pesach, we will talk about Pesach. But for the children of Israel, Yaakov and his 70 sons to go into Mitzrayim, to go into constriction. What was that all about? Why did they need to go in constriction? Done. Now let's go to Shemot, chapter 1, and we'll read out here. Ve'le Shemot bnei Israel habayim Mitzrayima et Yaakov ish ubait ba'u Reuven, Shimeon, Levi, ויהודה, יששכר, זבולון ובנימין, דן, נפתלי, גד ואשר. ויהי כל נפש יוצא ירק יעקב, 70 נפש, ויוסף היה במצרים. I feel I've caught something. We're looking at the inner workings of the Torah. We're not looking at the physical outward things, right? It says, ויהי כל נפש יוצא ירק יעקב. The Bible is very modest when it writes about things. When it wants to tell you something that can sound very offensive or vulgar, so it becomes very modest. Like Abraham telling Eliezer, no, come here, put your hand underneath my thigh and swear to me. Yerek. It's not the thigh, it's the circumcised organ. But the Bible is very, very modest and very, it puts it very nicely to us. And these are all the persons who emerged from Jacob's Yerek, his loins. There were 70 souls. And Joseph was in Egypt, was in Mitzrayim. Why does it have to use a superfluous statement out here? It could have said, Yaakov came with 70 of his entourage, of all his tents and all the people he had. There were 70 of them and they all came to Mitzrayim. That's it. But it says these are the 70 that came out from inside his yerek, from his loins. It's very important to understand because now we're going into the level of the subterranean level of the soul, not the outward, not the chizinyut, but we're looking at the pinimyut. So the Torah is taking us into a dive. It's talking about the nefesh, the souls. And we all know what nefesh is. We all know what neshama is. So it's not talking about the divine soul, it's talking about the nefesh, the animal soul. Because of which God opened the tap of fertility for them. Because God had to multiply them in a very short span of time. So he opened the tab of fertility, man and woman. Today, when you look at the world today and you meet couples and young couples, and more than 80% of couples have some kind of problem. It's true. In those days, this time, there was no problem. They were just producing children, just producing and producing and producing. In fact, it is said that each Jewish woman was giving birth to 3 and 4 children at one time. 3 and 4 children at one time. And year after year, they were just multiplying. See what it says out here. And these are the ones who emerge from Jacob's loins. So therefore, there is something very, very essential to understand. That when God blessed Abraham, and he changed Abraham's name, and he split the 10, the Yud, into 2 5s. Sarai, the end consonant is Yud. God removed that Yud. split it into two. A Yud is a 10. Into two, made it into 5 plus 5. Give Sarah, give Sarah, and made her Sarah. Give Abraham Abram, and he became Avraham, and gave him the hay. That infused into these two people a type of divine aspect to their personalities. And that had to come through each subsequent child by the Brit Milah, by the circumcision. This is what it's talking about. So there are other people in this world and other religions who can practice Brit Milah and circumcision, but they do not have the merit of what got done for Abraham and Sarai. So there is an aspect that is of a Jew that has been invested by God into all of them. Now, when you're reading many portions in the book of Exodus, God is constantly, especially Parsha Bo, which comes after this. Parsha Bo, God constantly says, Bo Moshe, come Moshe, come. Doesn't say go, it says come. It's because God has invested himself into the children of Israel. Wherever they go, whatever they do, whatever transpires with them, it is in God's interest to redeem them. And I've got news for you too. If you have been invested with that divine nature of God inside each one of you all through Yeshua, be aware of it. Because God will take an accounting of it. He's given you a part of himself. He's given you a part of himself because you have to cleave to him in Devkot. You put on his divine nature that has been invested in you. And if you go off the derek, know for sure that God will redeem you. God will redeem you. So just as he took out the Jewish people from the land of Mitzrayim, he's taken the nations out also from a spiritual slavery. Now, if he's going to take us out from our countries, where are we supposed to go? Got it? He's not going to send somebody and tell these people in India, say, come on, India, come out, I'm going to take you to an island somewhere. Doesn't make sense. Therefore, he has to do it in a inner level, in a pinimute level, not in a kizimute level. So, what he invested with Abraham, now finally, Yaakov is the one who who had 12 children, 13 in fact. One daughter, Dinah. And they multiplied, and they all came down into this slavery. They all came down into this constriction, into this Mitzrayim, into this constricted place. And before you know it, the place grew on them. Everything became bigger than them. And they were in slavery. So how did the slavery happen? Because Pharaoh of his time used the dark secrets, the underbelly of the occult in Mitzrayim to subdue them. And friends, I tell you one thing. If you are invested by God inside of you, in any form and in any kind of dimension or in any kind of quantity, you're going to have the occult and the dark world attack you relentlessly because he knows the light that's inside of you. that if you're able to redeem yourself completely, it's his failure. So you are going to have this fight. You're going to have a major fight in your life. Just tell you these things so you'll be aware of what our life is. Okay. Verse 8. Vayamat Yosef. Vekhol Akhiv, Vekhol Hador Hahu. And Yosef died, and all his brothers, and all the generations of his. So, U Bene Israel, Paru, Vaish Aratsu, Vai Rabbu, Vaya Azamu, Bemeod Meod, Watmale Haaretz Otam. And the children of Israel were fruitful, and they teemed, and they increased, and became very strong. Very, very, very much so. The land became filled with them. Okay, so what is happening out here? I'm telling you the inner portions of the Torah now. That the Nefesh, God had opened the tap of fertility, like you and me have never seen before. God decides to open the tap of fertility to this world. We will not have a population of 8 billion today. We'll have a population of 30 billion, or maybe even more. The earth will not be able to suffice. Sufficiently let us be able to live and to, grow our food, and we will not be able to. So God is in charge of so many things of your life. If He has withheld fertility in your life, there is a wisdom reason for it. If He has held back some portion of relationships in your life, there is wisdom to it. God knows exactly why you don't have what you have. If you've been given a difficult card in your life, if life has thrown you a very difficult card and you're negotiating life, God knows why. If you ever had that tool in your hand, you would misuse it. So God says, you're not going to get it. Not going to get it. There is a wisdom of God that tells you while you're reading the Torah that God decides to give you honor, God decides to give you wealth, God decides to give you a wonderful family, God decides your life for you, whether you're His or you're not. Whether you decide to follow God, God will give you what He has to give you. Even if you don't follow God, He's still giving you what you deserve. So a person who says, where is God? I don't believe in God. All this is mine. You fool. God is still giving you, and you don't even realize it. This tap of fertility He opened up to the Jewish people because He had to generate a people. He had to generate a nation. In actuality, they were there for 210 years. That's it. And that's probably the lifetime of over 2.5 people. That's it. But if you consider the other things and the other calculations, it comes to about 400 with Isaac and with Abraham. So the Geulah starts actually with Isaac. And they increase tremendously because the words that are used out here, it says, Vai Ratsu, Vai Sharadsu, Vai Rabbu, Vai Azamu, and they etsem. The word etsem is a very interesting word. It's also the word that's used for bones, your bone structure in Hebrew. Etsem is bones. Because your bones are that which defines you. Your body structure, your erectness, it gives you stature, it gives you strength, it gives you form, but your bones are constantly producing blood. And that bones is is making you stand on your 2 feet and for you to be human being. Otherwise, if you don't have bones, you'll be like an amoeba, a flubber ball. Imagine a human being without any bones. No? So it says that they were fruitful, they teemed like insects. What teams? Teems, teams. Only insects teem. And the word sharazu is talking about insects. Millipedes, centipedes, quadrupeds. It's literally giving the allegory that they were teeming like worms and insects. This is exactly how they were. God let it be. Now you'll question and saying, oh, why does God do all these kind of things? It's really incredible. Why does God put me into a real horrible situation? And there are times in my life, let's say, I'm licking the dust of the road. I'm like broken, empty. I'm worse than a worm. God, what are you doing to me? This is what happened to them. They were just producing children. I said, one woman, 3 and 4 children at one time. What? In 210 years, they became 2.4 million, almost 3 million. 600 and 600,000 men plus women plus children plus. Can you imagine? It's too big. It was so alarming that the Paro in his time had to get up and say, 1 second, something wrong with here. Something is happening. Because God also had to deal with the darkness and the center of darkness in that ancient world that was Mitzrayim. That's okay, I'm going to deal with you. Why? Because Egypt was the place from where astronomy, astrology, occultism, research, everything started from here. But how did it land up in Egypt? How did Egypt start this? How did Egypt start this? Egypt started this because the Semitic tribes, the Magi or the Chaldees, Ur of the Chaldees, traveled right across the Fertile Crescent. They came and they settled in ancient Egypt. So your understanding that the Egyptians were African tribes, they were not fully African tribes. They were Semitic tribes. The Egyptians had a Semitic connection and they came from the Chaldees because the Chaldees were the original astronomers and astrologers and necromancers and witchcraft people of its day. And they spread right across the Fertile Crescent. They were in every king's court. They were counselors to all the rulers and emperors of its time and day. So much so even when Yeshua was born, they came searching for him. They said, we have seen something immaculately different. Something has happened in the sky, and that is a wonderful thing that's happened on this earth. There's a king that's born. Where is he? They came searching for him. So now you can imagine how even the ancient world, the wisdom and the occultic thing of the ancient world were very, very powerful. When they came to Egypt, Egypt and its Nile basin, right to Khartoum, Sudan. By the way, the word in Hebrew for the dark practices and witchcraft is Khartoumim. Khartoumim, which is present in Khartoum, Sudan, capital of Sudan. And the library in Khartoum, the ancient world had a library in Khartoum. Scrolls and scrolls of scientific knowledge and discovery. Most of it was burnt out. And then it came to Egypt, Alexandria. They also flourished till it burnt out. So there was an underbelly of the occult which was happening in. See, and while that was very prevalent in Egypt, God said, "You come, my people, be here, and let you thrive, and you will grow, and you will become a nuisance to these people till I crush them by you." But double action. You're going to crush them. Egypt is not going to remain the same after I bring you out, because I'll make you into people and I'll bring you out from this place. Egypt will perish and go. And when they came out, truly, Egypt was not itself. It was not what it used to be. The pride and glory of Egypt was finished. The rider and the sea and the chariots all died in the sea. Where is my honor, says God? Incredible. A new king rose over Egypt who did not know Yosef. He said, "Behold, the people, the children of Israel, are more numerous and stronger than we. Come, let us act wisely, that it become." Did you understand? Let us act wisely and cunningly with them, so that to it, okay, come, let us act wisely to it, lest it become numerous, and it may be that if a war will occur, they may join with our enemies and wage war against us and go up from the land. They had all their political calculations and all of that. And then you'll know what happened. They appointed tax collectors and this and increased the workload and all slowly. It reminds me when you have a pro-people government, when the government is not very, very efficient, not very, very efficient. This is known in economic theory. Okay, if you'll all study the economic theory, it's very well known that a superbly efficient government destroys humanity. It does not serve humanity. A government that is not fully efficient, culture and people and society thrive. Don't ask me for the answer, but it's true. A super efficient government will only go one way, will go by way of taxes, because they will cut and they will adjust and put everything this by that, this by that, this by that. You'll have, a fantastic structure, tax network, and strong government, and strong personalities, and world outlook, and great personalities, and great leaders, and all. And the people are burdened with the efficiency of the government. The federal structure becomes too big, too strong. The people suffer. When a government does not have 100% efficiency, the people don't suffer. There is a cordial relationship between people and government, and that serves well. People thrive, they live. They live. Uh, since we're talking about this, so I just want to tell you all, this is what happened in Egypt. They were moving to a super efficient government. Today, you have many countries that are striving for super efficient government. It has its repercussions. It has its repercussions. Okay, so this is what they've done. Now, this is the interesting part. The king of Egypt said to the Hebrew midwives, of whom the name of the first was Shifra, And the name of the second was Pua. Two interesting personalities. Who are this Shifra and Pua? By the way, if you all have noticed, it's not until the third and the fourth, and maybe even, yeah, probably till the fourth chapter that names of people start popping out in the book of Exodus. Because till then, much later on, you don't know the name of Moses' mother. You don't know the name of Moses' father. That's it. It says, during that time, a man from the tribe of Levi got up and he took a wife. She bore a son. Where is the name? Everything is kept under wraps. Everything is hidden. There are no names. The names are revealed a lot later. And that begs the question as to why. But before anybody else, we are introduced to Shifra and Puah, the two midwives. What were these two midwives doing? And how important a role were these two midwives? Who were these two midwives? So the sages tell us these two midwives are none else than Yocheved and Miriam. She was called Shifra Yocheved because the word Shifra comes from the word shafar, amniotic fluid from the womb. From where you get the word shofar. Shafar, amniotic fluid is the same consonants, almost the same word. She was Shifra. And Pua is an appellation. Cooing. When you coo a child, coo, how will you, how you coo a child, right? So one was birth, amniotic fluid. The other one was sound, cooing, calling out. Now we are looking at, okay, these are the names of the 70 people who came out, right? All the names of the children and the sons and all. And this is the book of Shemot. If I do the gematria of the word Shemot, let's do the gematria. Shin, 300, Mem, 40, Vav, 6, Tav, 400, 746. Wow. Okay. What is 746 gematria? 746 in gematria is Shifra and Pua together is equal to 746. Shifra 300, Pe 80, Resh 200, and if you do the gematria and Pua, both the names together become 746. So who is the Bible actually talking to us about? Is it talking to us about about the 12 children and the 70 elders that came? Or it's talking about Shifra and Pua? Tell you why it's got something to do with Shifra and Pua also. Listen. So you'll all know the story that they were told, instructed by Paro that you kill all the male children, right? And they give him an answer. And the midwife said to Paro, because the Hebrew women are unlike the Egyptian women, for they are midwives. Before the midwife comes to them, they've already given birth. God did good to the midwives, and the people increased and became very strong. And it was because of the midwives feared God that he made houses for them. So he made a house for Shifra and he made the house for Pua. What are these houses? If you look at the entangled history right down, who was Shifra and Pua? Yocheved and Amram, they were from the tribe of Levi. Priesthood. Priesthood. So we're talking about the priesthood. One house from the house of priesthood. And I think somewhere out there, there's royalty also. I think many seasons ago, I touched upon Shifra and Pua, the two houses, one being royalty and one being priesthood. If you can see that video, it's somewhere on the YouTube. I don't know where it is, but please check it out. Anyway, I just wanted to tell her about this. And God blessed them with houses each. Shifra and Pua, 746. That's equal to the word Shemot. The name of this is Shemot, of the Sefer is Shemot. These are the names. So one second, if God is building a house through Shifra and Pua, God is doing something else. That is why it says that that generation died and went off. Now something else is happening to Shifra and Pua. What happens to Shifra and Pua? Now we're introduced to Yocheved, Moses' mother, and Pua. This is Miriam. And we know Miriam is prophetic from a child. She's very, very prophetic. This is Shifra and Pua. And then they have a brother by the name of Aaron, who's not in the storyline till Moshe is in Midian. Till he's in Midian. And then Moses is born. Oh, is this trying to tell us something that based on the full Moses story of Geulah, that God is building a house or houses of priesthood and royalty for the nation of Israel. It's very, very interesting. After this is told to us, then we're introduced to all the names. Chapter 2. We read chapter 2. Let's read chapter 2. Vayalech ish mebait Levi. Vaychak et bat Levi. A man went from the house of Levi. Who is this man? We don't know. It doesn't say. Just one of the houses, one poor, simple man from the house of Levi, inconspicuous, doesn't know anybody, nobody knows who this man is. He just went and took a wife. Vailek ish me bait Levi, Vaichak et bat Levi, Wattahar haisha, Wattalek ben, Wattera, Otho, Kitov hu, Wat Zafanu. And the man went into the house of Levi and took a daughter of Levi. The woman conceived and she gave birth to a son. And she saw that he was good and she hid him for 3 months. And she was no longer able to hide him. So she took for him a reed basket and smeared it with clay and tar, and she made a tevel, she made an ark. She made an aron, sorry, and put him in it and placed it among the reeds at the bank of the river. His sister, I may sound pretty sure right now, his sister stationed herself at a distance to know what would be done with him. Now, I want you to get the setting. I want you to get the setting. This is very archetype of, sounds very futuristic. There's something to be extracted out of this. Who told Yocheved, listen, put him in the ark, let's take him to the reeds and leave him out there? Feed him to the crocodiles of the Nile? Are you serious? Who would do something like that? There was a plan in action already. Already. Who knew this? Poa knew this. Miriam knew this. So Miriam says, Mom, put him in this ark. And we'll take him and we'll, at a specific time, at a specific place, we'll leave him out there. This is what they do. And then Miriam's hiding back behind the bulrushes and she's waiting. Because her plan is something very, very specific. She's waiting in the bulrushes. If they had to really desert him, they would have left him and ran for their lives. Why was she still hanging around over there? And his sister stationed herself at a distance to know what would be done with him. Paro's daughter went down to bathe by the river, and her maidens walked along the river. What is Paro's daughter, king and emperor's daughter, coming down to the river to bathe? Really? Give me a break. Don't they have saunas and baths and hot water baths in their palaces? Why is she coming down to bathe out here? You know what she's doing? And do you know what her name is? Bithya or Bathya, daughter of Yah. But isn't she Egyptian? It's because the children of Israel were growing so much, they were exerting a lot of pressure on the society in Egypt at that point of time. Bithya was very, very pro, if I want to use a very contemporary word colloquially, pro Jewish. So when she seen the Jewish child, she said, no, keep him. She could have murdered him, right? No, keep him. But this plan was hatched by Miriam because she knew the time, she knew everything. She knew when Bithya would come down to bathe, not to bathe. What do you do in running water? The laws of mikveh are supposed to be fulfilled in running water. What is a mikveh? Ritual purity. Ritual purity. She was coming down to ritually purify herself. And she seen this child. Oh, she has saunas and baths and hot water baths and perfume baths and everything in the palace. She does not need a dirty, stinking Nile filled with crocodiles to have a bath. She had come for ritual purity to make way out there because it's running water. She came and she seen this. Now Miriam puts everything into motion. Brilliant strategist. Absolutely brilliant strategist. Whether she's guided by God's spirit or whether she's doing this on her own, we don't know. So it could be, something I would call it, man, this is like a Mossad angle out here. Something's happening behind. Jews are too smart. They're infiltrating and they're taking everything over through a very different angle, and the poor Egyptians don't know about it, right? It could have been that too. And obviously, then Moses grows up as a prince in Egypt. He goes up. Okay, but there's one simple connection I want to close with today. Because these are inner workings of the Torah. When Moses is in the desert, okay, when Moses is in the desert, he runs away, he's in Midian, and he's tending his Ruel's flock of sheep, right, in the desert. It says in chapter 3, it says, Moshe haya roe et son. And Moses was shepherding. Roe is a shepherd. Moshe haya roe et son. Yitaru kohen Midian. Wahi nahag et hadson. Akhar hamidbar. Vayavo el har ha Elohim korava. Notice. And Moses was grazing the sheep of Yethro, his father-in-law, okay, the priest of Midian, the Kohen of Midian, and he was shepherding, he was guiding the sheep far into the wilderness. And he came to the mountain of God. 1 second. Mountain of God? Who? How do you know this is the mountain of God? Who knows this is the mountain of God? Did the ancient world know this is the mountain of God? Or it's termed mountain of God only after all this has happened. Towards Horeb. An angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire. Vayara malach Adonai Elohecha belevet esh, in the heart of fire. It says belevet, in the heart. Lev is heart. Belevet, in the heart of the fire. Metok hasina, Very interesting. Metok in the middle point, in the absolute middle point of Hasina. One second. What is Sina? Sina is hatred, it's persecution. It's why it's called Mount Sinai. And this bush is that bush full of thorns and brambles. It will hurt you. It grows in that area, Mount Sinai. It's called Sina. From where we also get the word Sinat Hinam, mindless, baseless hatred. So God is appearing, sorry, God, his angel, is appearing through his angel in this bush of Sina, of complete, uh, you can call it persecution, pain, uh, hatred, everything negative. And in the middle of that, the fire is consuming that hatred and this thing. In the middle of all of that, he is appearing to him. Methok Hasina, Vaira Vehinini Hasinat Be'ar Be'esh. And he says, and from within the thorn bush, he saw and behold, the bush was burning in the fire, but the bush was not consumed. Then Moses thought, he says, let me turn aside now, this great sight. Why will the bush not be burnt? So he says something very amazing out here. But it's only when God sees Moses turn his gaze and come and inquire, then he calls to Moses. And then it says, Vaira Adonai ki sar lirot vaikra elav Elohim methok hasina. And then God saw that he turned aside to see, and God called out to him from the middle of the bush and said, Moses, Moses, I want you to know one thing. Whenever God speaks to you, he will always call your name out twice. Always keep this in mind. Always. Whenever he speaks to you, it's always be twice. And there's a reason for that. And he replied, here I am, Hineni. And he said, do not come close here. Take off your shoes from your feet, for the place you stand upon is holy ground. And he said, I am the God of Abraham, your father, God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and God of Yaakov. Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to gaze towards God. Then it says, I have indeed seen the affliction of my people. But I want you all to understand one thing today. You know, God is talking to us all the time. God is talking to us all the time. But we are so blunt to understand his appearance and his words. Do you know he's talking to you through your pain? But we're totally negative to it. God is appearing to Moses through Sinai, through the affliction, through the thorns, through the pain, because God is saying, I invested myself in Abraham. And every child of Abraham after this has a piece of me. If they feel the pain, so do I. God was in Mitzrayim. In other words, it was in God's interest to redeem them from Israel so that even he would be able to come out to them. Please make a note of this. That is why he keeps telling them, come, let's talk to Pharaoh. He doesn't tell Moses, go and talk to Pharaoh. There's a difference. There's a big difference. Only Satan tells you, go. You know what? God says, come. Because God is invested in you. And he'll talk to you through your pain, to your circumstances. He'll talk through you. He will show you things. Your mind is not able to grasp when you're like, what is that all about? I don't know. And if we don't change, we don't catch him. And if we don't absorb what he's doing and talking to me to all these, He's just going to stop one day and say, this child of mine doesn't get it. Moses understood it. I've heard the outcry because of what they're going through, for I know its pains, which God says this. I shall descend to rescue it from the hand of Egypt and bring it up, that the land to a good and spacious land, to a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaani, the Hitti, the Amori, the Perizzi, the Hivi, and the Yevusi. And now, behold, the outcry of the children of Israel has come to me. That means it has come to his throne. Where else have we heard of something like this? In the book of Genesis, when God descends, the second time God descends on this earth, there are only 8 times God has descended on this earth. The second time, the first time was in the Garden of Eden when they sinned. The second time, when God came to see Sodom and Gomorrah, and he comes and visits Abraham. He says, I've descended to see with my own eyes what has been reported to me. God doesn't ascend and descend whenever he feels like it. When something very specific is happening on this earth, God descends and God says, I have descended now. And now behold, the outcry of the children of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression from which the Egyptians oppressed them. And now I will send you to Pharaoh, and you shall save my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. ואתה לך ואשלך אשלחך אל פרעה. And now, ואתה לך ואשלחך אל פרעה. This word, ואתה לך לאשלחך, is found somewhere else also in the Torah. It's found in the book of Bereshit, chapter 37, verses 13, 14, and 15. Especially chapter 13, maybe in my Hebrew Bible, but in yours maybe 15. It is when Yaakov calls Yosef, come here. Your brothers are out with the sheep pasturing and they've not returned back for 2 months. Come now, and I will send you to them. Go and tell me how they are faring, how they are doing. These are the only 2 times these words are used in the Bible. Ve'ata lecha ve'eshlechachecha paro. Yaakov uses the same word in chapter 37. He says, come, I will send you to your brothers. Moses is sent to his brothers to redeem them out of Israel, Mitzrayim, to bring them out. Like the prototype, Yaakov sends Yosef to his brothers. But when I started today's Shiur, I told you about Yosef. What kind of personality Yosef had. He was too brash, overconfident, always getting up in other people's sleeves, irritating them, being one up upon them, thinking he was like he knows all. It didn't sit well with people. It didn't sit well. He was not mature enough. So therefore he had to go to Mitzrayim. But he conquered Mitzrayim. He conquered Mitzrayim. We all have tsar, a constriction inside each one of us. Mitzrayim is a constriction in everybody's life. We have to navigate our way out of constriction, rise above it, and sit like Yosef in royalty in Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim is under my feet now. That is the goal of everything, my friends. Like Yosef went into Mitzrayim and he overcame it. That's why Yeshua says, he says, be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. I find it really amazing when people say, okay, this world is not, I'm going and there. One second. Overcome the world. Do your best to overcome this world. Your role is to overcome this world and to sit in royalty. If you say that you're sitting with Yeshua and being who Yeshua wants you to be, that means you've overcome this world. But my question is, have you overcome your Mitzrayim, your constriction inside of each one of you? If you've not even started, right now is the right point to start. Understand your Mitzrayim, understand your constriction, understand the hinged places inside of you, understand where your mind has become shallow, understand where you're restricting your own thoughts, understand where you are heading to, understand why you are not being productive, understand why you're not growing, understand why this is not happening. It's because you are in a constricted place, and unless you do not rise above that and sit in royalty above all that constrictions, you cannot be like Yeshua and you cannot say like Yeshua, I have overcome the world. This is Yosef. He was arrogant, he was brash, he didn't place cards right. Even his father had to tell him, what do you mean? That even your mother and father, we are going to bow down before you? You understand what I'm saying? But he had to go to Mitzrayim and be crushed and learn maturity. Then he overcame it. That's why Yeshua says, I have overcome the world. Be of good cheer, my friends. Today, what do we get out of this? The inner workings of the Torah, which says that I have to identify the Egypt in me. I have to identify the Mitzrayim. Understand it. Where are my constrictions? Work on it. Rise above it. Then you will reign. Then you will overcome. God bless all of your friends. May you all leave today with this encouragement that Yeshua says, be of good cheer. I have overcome the world. I have overcome the world. Take this as your motto. Go forward boldly and say, I have to overcome Mitzrayim in my life. And every year, we want to celebrate Good Friday, we want to celebrate this, we want to celebrate Pesach. The sages say, every year when you celebrate Pesach, it's as if you were in Mitzrayim yourself. That you were there. It's personal to you. Come out of it. Rise above it. And reign like Yosef. God bless. Shabbat Shalom, friends. Till we meet next time. I put the recording on.